All right, I'm going to demo the SimCloud API and various resources that can be hit in the API using a tool called Postman, which is an API testing tool that's available for free that you can download. So basically what I've done is I've created what's called a collection in Postman and created a bunch of resources in here so I can just walk through this quickly. So I've pre-installed this stuff to kind of quickly fire through. The first resource that's part of the SimCloud API is the canary resource. You're going to hit your URL. We're on just a test sandbox site here, but this component of the URL is the piece that will be specific to your site once you purchase the API, install it. So the canary does not need authentication. You can just hit the canary and it will send a response back, a status that it's running. The next thing we're going to do, pretty much all subsequent calls to the API, with the exception of the authenticate call, require a bearer token to be put into the header of the API request. So essentially, this is what the request format's going to look like. You can go into the worker portal or WebDriver if you're on a classic site once you have the API installed. And there's basically what's called an app authorization. The app authorization, there could be multiple app authorizations. It defines what resources are available to that specific app or application that's hitting the API. And it also defines the username. It provides an authorization key, and then you can set or reset the authorization password. So these are some dummy things that we set up for the purposes of this demo. So you'll need to put that in and basically use this format to basically call the authenticate URL, and it's going to respond back with a token, and the token is going to have an expiration date that it'll provide you. You'll then take this token and you'll drop this into all subsequent requests. So you can see in here, if I go into my header, I'm about to do a GET request for accounts. This is the table that we drop customers in or companies in. This resource is the account resource that we're about to hit. And basically, I just drop bearer space and then that token into the authorization in the header. And this allows me to make calls. So essentially what I'm doing now is I'm sending a request and it's going to return me the accounts. This is going to get all accounts. It's going to use pagination. So it will send you the first 50. You can just add the page number to the end of the request and basically get the subsequent pages of the request. Now I'm going to go in and I'm demonstrating what we call a GET filter or a search string. You'll hear it called. I've dropped that at the end of the URL. This is a pretty robust tool to filter the results that you get back across any GET request that you have. So there is a separate article in the Help Center that goes through the details of all the commands that are supported. You can do complex ands and ors, which I'll show you here in a second. But the first thing I'm doing here is I'll just show you an example of, I'm going to go pull an account that has the ref ID field exactly matching this syntax 00-test 333, and you can see there is the account. So if I come switch this back to 222, I'm going to see my 222 account. This particular demo that we have set up, just to make it more digestible, we have configured this API resource, the account resource, to only return 4 fields. The ref ID, one important thing to note is on any table that you're doing gets or posts, particularly posts or puts or deletes, we have what we call a user key in every database table, or every data entity has a user key. In most tables, it's the ref_ID. There's other tables like the product where it's actually the SKU in the products table. That is the user key field, and that is the field that we use throughout our logic to identify the record. There should be one and only one record in any given table with the user key or ref ID. We do have a separate database key that we use on the back end. That's the primary key of the database, but this is the friendly key that you set that is the value that is used for looking up a record to see if it exists, and will make edits to the record or deletes to the record, or will be used to add the record. So make sure that you're using unique values in your user key field, which in most tables is the ref underscore ID. The other thing, you'll see the status is a binary field. Most tables have a status. You can just set it to true or false, or 1 or 0. It will accept either one. True or 1 is it's on or enabled, and false or 0 is it's off or disabled. Just a couple notables there. So now I'm going to go through and show you a more advanced search string. You can see I'm still on the account resource. And I'm not going to get into explaining all the syntax. There's an article that does this, but now I'm doing a like search on the ref ID. So it's got to include a 00 test, and the name of the account has to have the word blue in it. So if I come here, you will see, and I'm going to come back to this and show you this, but there are 4 accounts that have 00 test in the ref ID and the word blue in the account name. Now you'll notice here that I've got accounts 111, 222, 333, and 444 that match this criteria. I'm now going to attempt a put. The HTTP methods that are supported in the API are gets, posts, puts, and deletes. The put basically will only do an update if the record exists, and it's going to know it exists based on this ref ID or the user key, whatever that is, in each table that you're going through. So I am going to attempt to do a put. An interesting thing you'll see down here in the response, it says imported records equals 0. Updated records equals 0. Imported means they were added. Updated means they were edited. And the record count in your request is 1. So we sent 1 record, but it didn't do anything. So let me come back to here, and you'll notice that what I'm attempting to do is set this. Let me. Well, we'll come back to that. Sorry, I was attempting to post it. I'm going to come back here and go back in. Let me pause for a second. Okay, I've just switched my search to look for green now, and you'll notice that there are no results in this. So if I come back to blue in my search command, you'll see those 4 records. So basically the concept of the put, what I'm demonstrating here is I attempted to add a new account through a put, and it did not allow me to do it. And that's because by design, the put is only an edit. So it's forcing an edit. Now I'm going to create this account. So now I'm doing a post. Our post is a smart post. So it will do an add or an edit. And if you pass an array, which I'll talk about in a little bit, it's actually smart. It will figure out if, based on the ref ID, if it exists, it will update the record. If it does not exist, it will add a new record. And you can pass an array. We'll talk about that here in a second. So now I'm going to send a post for this my test company 555, and you can see that imported records equals 1, and my record count in the request is 1. So now if I go back over here, I'm going back up to this this one that's looking for the blue accounts. You can see there's 4 now. I'm going to hit it again, and now you can see my 5 accounts. My 555 account just showed up. Now I'm going to go back to the put that I originally tried, and this put, you'll notice, is changing the account name from 555 blue to green. So I'm changing this to a green account. We'll run the put, and you'll see that there was 1 record updated. It was successful. And now if I go back and rerun this API call for blue, you'll see that I'm now back to 4 accounts that are in here. If I change this to green, you'll see that my green account is now in. So let me go back to blue and hit that again to see the 4. So now I'm going to demonstrate. So what we've done is just created the 555 account, and we had the 11, 222, 333, and 444 already. Now what I'm going to do is show you in passing an array. So you can see I've got the array brackets here, and I'm passing multiple records. in an array. We can take a batch records that get posted to the API. If you post 10 or less, the API will receive it and commit it directly to the database. So you can send multiple records in an array. If you send more than 10, it's going to go through an asynchronous process to post, and it basically gets dropped into a message queue, and we have a back-end process that will potentially break apart records and push them into the database. We do that to preserve the database stability and make sure we're not the API is not hammering the database with dropping big chunks of records on it. So it will go into the queue automatically if there's more than 10 records. So you can see in this case, I've got my test 222, 333, and 444, and I'm changing the name to orange on these. And I'm going to send this as a post. So the post, remember, we'll do an add or update. So I'll send this as a post, and you can see it has updated my 3 records. I'm going to go back here to my blue get on the accounts, and you can see I'm down to 1. If I come change this to orange, you can see I'm now back to my, I can see the 3 records that I updated, my 222, 333, and 444 on orange. So let me change this back to blue. Okay. And then now I'm going to go into a put. I'm going to do a put on various accounts. Again, what we had just done was changed a bunch of these to orange. A couple things that you'll notice here on the put is I've got a few records like test 111. I've got that in here twice. What this thing should do is follow the sequence. So if you have the same record into a put twice, it will run it, but the last record through is going to win. So you can see this put, I've got USA as my country on test 111, and then I've got Australia as the company on this put. So before I run this put, I'm going back to the get, and I'm going to show you the orange. Let's just verify this. The orange, yeah, all my companies are USA here, okay? So I'm going to go back to this put, which is setting these to blue, but my 111 is going to get set to Australia. So let's run through this. Basically, this updated 6 records in here. And if I come back to orange now, you'll see that there's no records in orange. And let me go back to blue. And you'll see now that I have my records have been reset back to blue from that put, and you'll also notice that 111 is the country code is now Australia. Now I'm basically going to come back and reset to my original values here, back to blue and Australia, and I'm going to delete. I'm now going to run a delete on my 555 account. Now, notable here is a delete. The only thing you need in the payload is the ref ID. It's the only thing that matters. If there's other stuff that gets passed, it's running a delete command on that ref ID. So let me go back here before I run the delete. I think our test, let's just do a quick test on 555. Yeah, we had done a put to turn this into green. So let me come back here. And I'm just going to run a post, or I could do a post or a put on this, but I'm going to update 555 back to blue again, which is what I just did, and you can see that was successful. So if I come back here, I've got my blue filter up here. I'm going to run it. I should see all 5 records now. I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 record in here. If I come back to the delete, which I had not run yet, I'm now going to run the delete on 555. And I'm going to post that, and you can see that it ran a success. Deleted records equals 1. The record count request, there's an issue with that. That should say 1. And if I come back to my get request now, I'm looking for my 555 or my blue here, and you can see that is now gone. And if I come back to my various account puts, one notable you'll see now is my 555 is in this put. So if I run this again, you can see that it shows 6 records in the request, but only 5 were updated, and that's because my 555 no longer exists. It's not in the system. So hopefully that gives you a good. We just focused on one. Just for a quick recap, we went in and hit the canary. There's also a health check, which I didn't show you, that's in here that you can hit once you authenticate. We authenticated, got a token. We used that token in the header to call the account resource, and then everything else we did was just on a single resource that we did a simplified version of that resource to just have a few fields that are returned. And we basically showed you using a get filter, a get to get all accounts. Then we showed you the get filter to basically filter to just a handful of accounts. We showed you a little bit more complex filter using an and to get a little more sophisticated on the filtering that was occurring on the accounts returned. We tried a put that didn't work because the record wasn't there. Then we created the record, tried the put, and it did work. Then we showed you a post and a put on multiple accounts. And then we basically reset our data and then ultimately showed you a delete on an account to get rid of the record. A couple notables here is on deletes, there's a setting in the API configuration. There's some tables we won't let you delete on. So we have a setting that when you push a delete, it will actually do what we call a soft delete, and it will disable the record. It'll set the status to false. So if you see that behavior occurring, that's by design. We're doing that so we don't orphan other records in the database or delete records that we want to keep for data integrity purposes. So that would be on a per resource basis. If you attempt to delete the resource, if it supports a delete, it may be one that only does soft deletes, which means it'll disable the record, which is typically done by setting the status to false. Another thing to note on posts or puts when you're editing records, if you are sending an array of records in, whatever fields are, whatever columns are sent, it's only going to touch the columns, but you've got to make sure those columns are represented in every single record. So for example, if I came in here and did a put, if I deleted this and did a put on test 11, so you can see I'm updating all these records on my test 111. Let me go ahead and do that. I'll show you this. Just be very cautious about this, because essentially what I did was I told in the array it's a posting now, essentially a blank value in the name field. So if I come back here to my test 11, actually I'm going to have to go back here and go to test 111 because my blue filter is not going to show up. Okay, that just made a liar out of me. Oh, you know what happened? Hang on. Let's see. The reason that worked is because the last one in worked. Okay. So let me crush that back out and not make a liar out of me. Let me send this again and just validate this. So the company was sent with the test 555. Let me go back to my test 11, and you'll see we just nulled the name field in test 11. So if I come back in, or test 111, sorry, 111. So if I come back in and I'm going to drop the company back in and send it, that should fix it or restore it back to what we just did. Let me validate that. And yeah, you can see that the name is back in. So just be careful. The benefit is when you call an endpoint to do a post or a put, you can only send the columns that you want touched. The user key has to be there. You can only send the columns you want touched. But it's critical that if you're sending an array or more than one record at a time on an update, doing a batch update, that you are sending the exact same columns in every single record to prevent unintended, really bad consequences from occurring to your with your data. So good luck with the API. And when you get into your specific site, you can go see all of the, that's where you'll be able to see all of the resources that are available in the documentation, as well as the field payloads that you can expect.